My name is Frank Shackelford, and for the interview that I chose to do, my father volunteered himself. He's a doctor, and I'd always been curious about what it was actually like going through the process to becoming a doctor. And I'm sure many of you have thought about it at one time or another in your lifetime, what it would be, what that journey would entail. And so I talked to him about the amount of time that it took him to go through school, what that was like, the experiences. Then he brought up a unique topic that I hadn't thought about, which is the pressure for perfection. How important it was to not make mistakes, ever. And then he told me a little bit about his workday and his schedule, which I found pretty interesting, kind of intriguing, but also scary at the same time. When I asked him about his time at school, he talked to me about first the bachelor's, 4 to 5 years. It took him 4. He was working full time, going through, and he realized early on that he needed to have all A's, or he wouldn't be able to get into the medical school, which would then get him into the residency. And as he moved through, he was able to get those A's, get through into medical school, because it is very selective, very hard to get in. You have to compete, you have to make yourself stand out, and the way to do that is to keep that 4.0. And once in medical school, though, he realized that it was pretty much the same the first 2 years. And then in the 3rd year, he told me about what it was to be a 3rd-year medical student working in a hospital, which he gave me a quote, and it's kind of been a funny thing that I've always remembered, which is, a 3rd-year medical student is the lowest form of life in a hospital. You get the coffee, you're on call 24/7, and you still have to go to classes. So you're always tired, you're never resting, there's always something that you need to be doing. So that's probably one of the hardest years that he had. He said that it was probably the hardest year. And from that point on, every year he gained a little more respect, a little more stature in the hospital. And then once he'd gotten through medical school, his 4th year, he moved on to doing the residency for 4 years. So 12 years of school in order to get to where he could start practicing on his own. I'd mentioned before perfection and getting all A's, and that didn't stop in medical school. He graduated one of the top of his class, and looked to becoming an OBGYN and obstetrics and gynecology. Perfection for this. I asked him about perfection. He talked to me about the importance of not making mistakes, but also of what happens if you do make a mistake. Insurance for malpractice is something that all doctors have to worry about. It's extremely expensive, and it's required. So he actually one of his fellow doctors one year made a mistake, and one of the children that he was caring for died, and he stopped practicing since, because the effect that had on him. And that's a reputation cost that can never be built back up, because one mistake, everyone will remember that, ever. And then because of that, that doctor no longer practices, he has retired, and my father has always feared that same thing happening to him. So he is constantly perfect, even in his daily life. His work day, though, it's pretty interesting how he works. on call for 3 days, 24 hours a day. He can be called in, and he's off for about a week. Then he works for another 3 days, off for a couple days, and then he works a full week. So it's kind of a changing and ever-changing schedule for him, but it's on a pattern. And he can't have more than a few weeks off, or more than a week off at a time, because he has to see the people that, because he has a lot of meetings that he has to go to, a lot of people in the office to see and have follow up. His time at school, through his time at school, he learned how to be perfect, how to not make these mistakes. And learned how to get through